Right. So it's Friday night here in the UK, and I'm joined by, let's be honest, one of the sharpest dressed guys in modern rock. Like, let's be honest, every time I've seen you play live, man, you got the hat, you got the swagger, everything's really awesome. It is Marc LaBelle of the incredible Dirty Honey. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing much better after that intro. Thank you.
No, you're very welcome. So Mark has been really nice to join me today to talk about his contribution and Dirty Honey's contribution to the Bad Company tribute, Can't Get Enough. And your tune is, of course, Rock Steady. Now, the first question really is, how did this project come your way, and what made you sort of want to be part of this?
Yeah, so I think a good friend of ours, Gary Spivak, is kind of spearheading this tribute record, if you will, and he's been working with Paul Rogers and Bad Company on the Rock Hall of Fame stuff. And yeah, he's been a great supporter of ours. He was at one of our first shows when we officially like became Dirty Honey at a bar in Santa Monica that like 9 people were at. And he was like, let's do it. And he obviously helps run a lot of the Danny Wimmer festivals, huge rock festivals over here. And I consider him a friend and a great supporter of the band. So when he approached us about doing Rocksteady, it was a obvious no-brainer, like Bad Company's a band that certainly we look up to, and as a frontman, Paul Rogers is one of the great ones that I appreciate. So yeah, happy to do it. And I think, we put our own sort of spin on the tune, which is always a oop, did I lose you there?
Yeah. No, I'm still here. Carry on. I don't know what's
Oh no,
happened with
you
my
you went
camera.
fuzzy on me. But no, that's always a challenge is when you're covering a tune, you want to sort of make it your own as best you can. And I think we made a Dirty Honey version of a Bad Company song, which is you know, obviously the goal. So
Cool. Now, I understand you've sort of said that Bad Company, just plain and simple, one of the cornerstones of rock and roll. What is it about their music for you personally that, really resonates so strongly?
for me, like certainly songs like Rock and Roll Fantasy and like Can't Get Enough. The Can't Get Enough was a cornerstone song for me. I first heard it like in Wayne's World 2. And I had that soundtrack as a kid because I had everything Aerosmith as a kid, and that was like a different band, obviously, on that soundtrack that spoke to me. But that was a song I would sing at karaoke all the time. Just because I knew I could like rock it pretty well. But I think, lyrically, their band, they kind of were that first wave of rock bands that kind of sung about rock and roll and sex and, you know, before rock sort of evolved into, later on with like sort of like social commentary type songs, political songs. That's a little further down the line, and like Free and Bad Company were sort of like that first
Yeah.
initial sex, drugs, and rock and roll. They're not so much drugs, but sex and rock and roll for me.
Sex, rock and roll, we'll think of something else by the end, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah,
I'm going off topic ever so slightly because you mentioned Wayne's World and that just really triggered my youth there.
yeah,
You got
yeah.
to agree with me. Wouldn't you just love to see a Wayne's World 3 where they're just aging rockers upset with the state of music today?
You know what? That's a good take on it. That would be interesting. I tend to, I listen to a lot of Dana Carvey interviews, and he was just like, money kills comedy. And anytime a comedy like that has success, the sequel is never as good. Like, there's something about it's a lot like music, honestly. Like the spontaneity of being in the studio together and just getting a magical take is very similar to comedy, where especially on film, like if you get something that where the timing is just right, like it's
Yeah.
uneditable, it's perfect as it is, and or perfectly imperfect, and there's a lot of similarities in those regards. So yeah, that's an interesting take on a Wayne's World 3, though. Yeah, aging rockers that they can't go to rock shows anymore. They don't exist.
Yeah, exactly. Everything's done online. It's a funny one. I had to sidetrack into that
Yeah,
because
yeah.
what is it? The Spinal Tap is out now. Apparently, I haven't seen it, but apparently not all
Oh,
that
is it
good.
out? It's
Yeah, it's
not
out.
good.
You can go and see it now. But
Oh,
apparently it's not all that good, and I'm just like, I need to
I'm
see it
not.
to judge
I'm
myself.
not.
Anyway, back on track. Out of like Bad Company's incredible, catalog, they've got, as you mentioned, so many great tunes. It was Rocksteady that you guys covered. What was it about this song that stood out for you and was, I suppose your choice to actually cover this one? Or was it actually not your first choice? And
My first choice would have been Can't Get Enough, but for business
yeah,
reasons, yeah, it couldn't happen. But no, it's a good tune. It's definitely an album cut. But I've heard a lot of I've heard a lot of the stuff that's coming out on the record, and it's all really good. And I think everybody sort of stays pretty true to the Bad Company versions, and they try to put their own little spin on it. But the thing that drew me to it was obviously like a riff. It's got a riff, and then by the end of the song, like I can really do my thing, more than I could maybe on like Shooting Star or something, for instance. Like it doesn't really jump up to that like really high energy rock and roll thing that we do well. So there's a little bit of a cross of what Dirty Honey is, and the best parts of Bad Company, in my opinion. So
now, when you actually did approach Rocksteady, how did you sort of try and strike that balance between, being faithful to that song and, putting your own twist on it? Because I was listening to both of them back to back, like a little bit before this, just going, for me, you've really hit that, like that sweet spot. So it's recognizable as not Bad Company,
yeah,
but there's
yeah.
something catchy. So how did you approach that?
I mean, we kind of just hack our way through it together. And then I think everybody finds their own lane, their own voice within the song. And that's really how we approach anything. If there's not a like we did do a different version of it in our own studio where we changed it up rhythmically and like made it a little more rhythmically exciting, I guess. Had a completely different drum groove, and it's like, okay, well, we could do this, or we could stay more true. Like, what do we want to do, And I think we just, as a tribute to them, like keep it as true to the real thing
Yeah,
as we. But just finding your own voice in there is important, and I think personally, as a singer, I've gotten really good at that. You know, Singing to Aerosmith and Zeppelin and AC/DC and Chris Cornell, and Brian Adams, and then trying to find like I sang those covers for years in bars here around LA, but eventually you kind of find like who is Marc LaBelle in all of that, so that you're
yeah,
not mimicking Chris Cornell or Steven Tyler. You're doing your own thing with their songs, and then as you start to create your own material, it only benefits you, you know.
cool. Now, Paul Rogers has been described, his voice as timeless. And I think you've actually said it only gets better with age.
Yeah.
So I think you've sort of touched on this already, actually, with your last response. But, as a vocalist, what do you think makes his style and delivery so enduring?
I think he's just got a lot of soul in his voice, and I think that's an element of all my favorite singers. Where if you can really make the listener feel something, just a cappella, that's that's the goal right there. Like if you can feel pain from my singing, like or if you associate like pain with a certain vocal performance or a yearning or like sexual desire or some whatever it is, like if that can be conveyed with the voice only, that's soulful singing, and I think people are naturally drawn to that. But he's got that in spades for me.
Cool. Now, going to the full album, the tribute, the actual record, it's got so many cool artists on it. There's Slash and Miles Kennedy, there's Hailstorm, The Pretty Reckless, and a band that you're actually on tour with at the moment, I believe, the Struts. What was it like being part of that sort of lineup where there's so many different interpretations?
Yeah.
And is there something, one of the songs perhaps, beyond Rocksteady, of course, because let's be honest, you're here, so I'm going to say it's the best one.
Thanks.
Would you say is like your favorite that's been covered?
On the record,
Yeah,
I mean the
bear in mind,
Struts.
I've not heard it yet, so
Yeah, no, the Struts did a good one. I've heard the Blackberry Smoke one. I've reached out to Spivak about hearing Slash's song. I haven't heard that yet, but they're all really good. I mean, of the ones I've heard, I wouldn't say I have like a favorite. They're all kind of taking the same approach in terms of like staying somewhat true, but it all sounds like all of the artists. I really enjoyed the Running with the Pack though by Blackberry Smoke. Just like the recording of it was sounded amazing. Like Charlie Starr doesn't really do anything bad, obviously. Like he did a whole Stones tribute EP that I really enjoy it, and I enjoy the sounds that they get, out of the studio. I think his voice is really nice, and he's a guitar guy, so like his tones are usually pretty sick. So um for now, yeah, other than ours, from what I've heard, that would probably be the no, we were just talking about my favorite tracks on the record.
That was it, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I think I got the point across with
I think so, yeah.
Smoke. So
So so Bad Company's influence, it stretches beyond rock, it gets into country, a bit of blues, Americana, and all of this sort of stuff. And why do you think their music, for example, actually, continues to inspire so many different artists, even 50 years on? I mean, what is it for you personally that endures for this band?
for me, it was always um certainly growing up, I was really always drawn to the live records because they were kind of like a greatest hits, but also there's like a freshness to the performances on every live record, whether all my favorite bands had one. So and Bad Company's no exception. So that was what really pulled me in about them. And certainly with the YouTube era, like that record specifically was all like online, the live performances, and you're just like, oh shit, like they're amazing live. Like that's a band I would love to go see. I never got the chance to see them live actually, um but that's an element, yeah, of all my favorite bands is just like bringing it live and killing it. And certainly now, like obviously in this digital era, I can enjoy the show on like a big screen TV with like casting it to the TV, and like,
Yeah.
man, this is sick. Like this guy's like 55 years old and crushing these vocals that are already like 40, 45 years old. Like that's these songs are obviously timeless. So yeah, I think just the live performances really drew me to them.
So what was the sort of the first introduction you had of them when you were younger? And when the first time you actually listened to them and got drawn into their music, what was that actually like for you?
I was well, I had known about them obviously from the Wayne's World soundtrack that I was super young when I was exposed to. And then later on, I just remember like when I was living in New York City, riding the train and like being able to I was working at a restaurant in New York for a bit, and I had like a 45-minute subway ride, and that's when I really discovered the Doors and Bad Company and like Queen's, like the depth of Queen's catalog, the depth of the Beatles, like going all the way back to their earliest stuff. And just I'm still like 30 years behind on discovering new music. Like I don't know anything really contemporary unless one of my good buddies is a huge music fan, and he kind of tips me off. He says, "This is sick." It just did it yesterday with a band called the Bends that I hadn't heard of, but I was like, "Oh, this is cool." But yeah, that first experience, I discovered the live record on the train. I was like, "This guy's amazing vocalist. Wow!" Like, and then of course, like listening to classic rock radio with my parents in the car, like my whole life. I was like, oh, this is them. You start to connect the dots. Like, this is them. Oh, that's them too. They have a ton of hits, and you're already like passively familiar with 10 or 12 of their songs without even trying. And then I get to enjoy the new versions of them on their live
Yeah.
record, as I'm sitting there on the train, just like, this is cool. So
Yeah.
yeah, I
Amazing.
specifically remember that though, being on the train in New York City, the one train from the Bronx, and listening to Bad Company at like 2 in the morning coming home from work.
Cool. So it's funny when you mention, like discovering new music. 'Cause it was actually thanks to Dirty Honey, in fact. I came to see you at the Electric Ballroom in London, I think, last year, and you had a
Yeah,
band
yeah.
called Baby Said supporting.
Yep.
I'm absolutely blown away by them. So discovering new music, I'm always going to say, go and see the opening act of a band, even if you don't know them. That's
Yeah.
what I'll recommend. Now, I mentioned you're already on tour at the moment with the
We just
Struts.
finished, actually. We
Oh, was
just
it
finished
just finished? I do
on Saturday.
apologize.
Yeah. No, all good.
Sorry. It's a US tour, so I pay very little attention because I'm not
Yeah,
going to be
yeah.
of able to come to the shows. I
But
should
yeah,
have
yeah.
paid more
It's
attention to
gonna be
that.
an expensive trip.
Yeah. But, you have been on tour with the Struts who have also had an input into this record. What was that actually like, being on tour with them? And was there a bit of friendly rivalry about who did the better cover?
You know what? I didn't really get to talk to them. They did theirs quite a while ago, I think, because they were sort of the first ones to do it, and then um, that they use that material to coerce Dirty Honey and the Pretty Reckless and other artists to get involved. It's not a tough sell, obviously, to do a tribute to Bad Company, but it goes along with the package. Like this is what they did with it. Feel free to do what you want. And we're like, oh, that's cool. So, but no, I didn't get to talk to them too much about it. I don't think they played theirs live at all during the set. So, but we were really both for the most part talking about our next records that'll be coming next year for both bands, and got to hear some of their stuff that they're working on, and we showed them some of our stuff, and I'm sure they heard a ton of our stuff at the sound checks. They're probably sick of it already, but it was great. It was a great tour. Yeah, I don't think there wasn't a rivalry specific to the Bad Company tribute, but I think anytime two rock bands go and share a stage, like there's a ingrained competition. Like
Yeah.
you want to do great. You want people. I want people to walk out talking about the show, but you also want people to walk out saying like, "Oh fuck!" Like I didn't know Dirty Honey. They were fucking great. I'm glad the Struts brought them on tour, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Cool. I am still here. I'm not sure what's happening with my camera. Back again. It
Oh,
keeps
I think
happening.
what it looks like it's focused. It's like finding a different focus point
It might
actually.
be. I might have to mess around with the settings at some point.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, you've mentioned new music, hopefully next year. So I won't touch too much on that because I don't know how much you can share. But I will ask, are you going to be bringing that to the UK potentially next year at all?
Oh, for
That'd be
sure. Yeah,
nice.
I think the download experience
Yeah,
we had this year was fucking unbelievable. So, that was a big that was like maybe the biggest audience we've ever played for. That was like I don't know how many tens of thousands of people. It was as far as I could see.
yeah.
So and it seemed to go over really well, and I've heard a ton about it since. So yeah, we'll get back over there at some point. I don't know when, but the short term focus right now is recording what is the next record, and we've been working pretty hard at that. You know, we were really working hard on it before we went on tour for that UK Euro run that we did over the summer, and obviously like finishing stuff while you're on the road all summer and into the Struts tour. It's been a busy last 5 months. I think we're just going to take a week or two here before we reconvene and start plowing our way through the new material and figuring out where we're going to record it, get a producer, and figure all those things out. So hopefully March, April, something like that, we'll get something out. Fingers
Cool.
crossed. Yeah.
Well, it's my birthday at the end of March, so I'll take that as an epic birthday present directly to me.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
get the release date bang on March the
Honestly,
30th, and I'll just be
if
like, he
if
did it
that
for
if
me.
that's the key that gets us moving quickly on it to get it out, that I'll take it.
Minted. Absolutely amazing. And I will say, I was at that download show, albeit only for part of it because I had to get to go and do an interview, but I did a
Yeah.
nice slow walk past. You sounded incredible, just so you know.
Thanks. Yeah, it's always hard when they're that early, but yeah, that was a fucking awesome show. That was so fun.
It really was. Mark, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to chat to us today. It's been an
Likewise.
absolute pleasure. Looking forward to this album coming out. Looking forward to your next batch of music as well, because I believe that'll be the third, was it third album now? Is it?
It's funny because the first one was an EP, so I always think of them as like they're all like little albums, but I guess yeah, it'll be the third full length record. Or who knows? I don't know what we're gonna do. We're gonna figure that out in the next couple weeks here. So um, I don't know if it's gonna be 5 songs, 10 songs, double LP. Who the fuck knows? We'll see. We
As
gotta
long
we
as it's
gotta
on
record it
March the
first, and
30th.
then zoom out and see where we're at.
Cool. Mark, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. enjoy your downtime, and hopefully we'll see you here in the UK next year. Take care,
Likewise.
buddy.
Man. Be good.